Breaking news, Vladimir Putin has just issued one of his most defiant warnings to the United States yet. And this time, he made sure the world was listening. After Washington announced another wave of harsh sanctions against Moscow, Putin looked directly into the cameras and declared, "It's not going to get better for them." Those words sent shockwaves across global political circles. What did he mean by that? Is Russia planning something bigger? And could this mark a turning point in the U.S.-Russia power struggle? The latest sanctions from Washington target some of Russia's biggest banks, defense suppliers, and energy companies. The U.S. government claims these actions are meant to weaken Russia's war capabilities and isolate its economy. But within hours of the announcement, the Kremlin fired back, not with missiles or threats, but with confidence. Putin calmly appeared on national television, dismissing the sanctions as futile attempts to pressure a country that has already learned to survive on its own. He smirked slightly and said, "They believe this will weaken us, but they're only weakening themselves." That single line captured Russia's new tone, calm, fearless, and ready for a long game. For years, the U.S. has relied on economic sanctions as its weapon of choice, freezing assets, blocking technology exports, and banning trade with targeted nations. But experts are now beginning to question whether that weapon is still as powerful as it used to be. Despite the restrictions, Russia's economy hasn't collapsed. Instead, it has adapted, creating new partnerships with China, India, and the Middle East. Russian oil and gas, once sold mostly to Europe, are now flowing east. Factories are running again using alternative suppliers, and domestic production has surged. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, even admitted, "Sanctions haven't broken Russia the way we thought they would." That's exactly what fuels Putin's confidence, the belief that the West underestimated Russia's ability to adapt. When Putin said it's not going to get better for them, analysts believe he was speaking directly to the U.S. and its allies. Over the past year, Russia and China have strengthened their economic and military cooperation like never before. They've built alternative trade systems that bypass the U.S. dollar entirely. More and more countries are joining this movement, trading in their own currencies instead of relying on American banks. The world seems to be dividing into two major blocks once again, one led by Washington, the other by Moscow and Beijing. And in this emerging multipolar world, sanctions are losing their bite. Some experts even warn that the U.S. might be unintentionally accelerating its own decline. By overusing sanctions, Washington is pushing other countries to become independent of its financial system. Nations like Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and even African economies are now exploring new trade routes outside the Western network. In the short term, America looks strong, but in the long run, these cracks in its dominance are starting to show. Meanwhile, in Washington, officials insist that sanctions are working, claiming they've restricted Russia's access to technology and reduced its global influence. But behind closed doors, the tone is more cautious. Inflation in the U.S. is still high, energy prices remain unstable, and Europe is struggling with the economic fallout. Some experts say the West is feeling the pain almost as much as Russia. And yet, Putin appears unfazed, almost as if this entire confrontation is going exactly according to his plan. Putin's confidence comes from more than just economics. It's about image and control. Every time the U.S. tries to isolate him, he uses it to strengthen his position at home. To his supporters, he's the leader who stood up against Western pressure and refused to bow down. Russian state media portrays him as calm under fire, a man defending his nation's pride while the West scrambles to maintain its power. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is clear: Putin knows how to turn Western hostility into domestic strength. This growing tension has many experts warning that the world may be entering a new Cold War, but one that looks very different from the last. Instead of nuclear weapons, the main weapons today are financial systems, energy supplies, and digital influence. The U.S. is trying to contain Russia through money and trade, while Russia is slowly building a parallel world where American influence doesn't reach. And with China joining that effort, Washington's global dominance is facing its biggest test in decades. So when Putin says it's not going to get better for them, it's not just a warning, it's a statement of confidence. He believes time is on Russia's side, not America's. The United States wanted to isolate Russia, but instead, it might have pushed Moscow into the arms of new and powerful allies. Every sanction seems to make Russia less dependent on the West and more integrated with the East. The big question now is how long this economic war can continue before it becomes something far more dangerous. Could the next phase be cyber warfare? Could we see proxy conflicts in other regions? Or will global pressure finally force the two sides back to the negotiation table? As the tension between Moscow and Washington intensifies, the entire world watches closely. Because what happens next won't just shape the future of the US and Russia, but the balance of global power itself. This story is still developing. Stay tuned for more updates on the growing power struggle between the United States, Russia, and China right here, where truth meets breaking news.